Excellency Rector of Universitas Negeri Jakarta, Vice Rector, Deans, honorable guests from abroad, of course, all of participants. It's really an honor for me to be here and to share some of our policy related to the leadership and governance of university. But I think it would be very good for me if I would have the mic. It's difficult for me to do. I will stand over there. Okay, thank you. Since I was, expected to give a keynote speech, so I have chosen the topic that might be interest to every one of you. This is about leadership and government. And then to give you some ideas about why in Indonesia we have to pay a lot of attention to education. There was a study by McKinsey Global Institute in 2012. In the year of 2012, position of Indonesia economically is the 16th largest in the world. But having a condition which is called as bonus demography, and the average is about 5% economic growth, and with a number of population about 255 million people and increasing in number, it is expected that by the year 2030, Indonesia will be the 7th largest economy in the world. 7th largest economy in the world. But in order to go there, Indonesia needs skilled workers. And it's said the number is about more than 100 million professional skilled workers. If we did not produce those numbers, then what is called as bonus demography, it will be a burden to the nation. So we have to work very, very hard, especially for the higher education sector. From the higher education sector. So we have to work very hard in order to to produce the professional skilled worker. And this is the priority of the Ministry of Research, Technology and Higher Education. The strategic objective 2015 to 2019. Improvement of higher education quality. The rector had just mentioned about the aspiration of this university to become a world-class university. International accreditation, improvement of relevance. We still have problem with the job market. We produce a lot of graduates, but some of them, about 6%, still are able to have a good job. So then we have to have a good education in order to meet the society, to meet the economy. That's why we need to improve the relevancy of education. And also we need to, improve the number of entrepreneurs. Because if Indonesia would like to move to the next level, then percentage-wise, we have to be able to provide the number of entrepreneurs from less than 2% to around 2%. Because nowadays about 1.5%. And we talk about access to higher education. I'll show you later. And of course, if we could improve the quality, eventually, the global competitiveness index of Indonesia will be increased. And what I'm going to talk this morning, mostly about the higher education governance and leadership. Governance and leadership of higher education. This is the condition of higher education system in Indonesia. You can see the number first, around 4,500. And then if we check the number in Europe, the whole European Union, the number is less than 4,000. And even in China, with a population of 1.4 billion people, the number of universities is less than 3,000. And in Indonesia, we have, you can see, 4,500 universities. The problem with Indonesia is we do have a disparity in quality. Disparity in quality. For example, the quality of incoming students. In some university, it is very difficult to be admitted. The competition is very fierce. If you want to be accepted in one of those universities, those elite universities, you have to be cream of the cream. But in some other university, you got more number of chairs compared to the epic. So the condition. And then we got more than 4,500 students. But if we see the number of the vocational or polytechnic students, it's less than 1 million. And if you would like to improve the quality of human resources that you like relevant with the need of economy, then we need to improve the number of students from vocational school. Otherwise, we keep producing the thinker, Doesn't mean that thinking is not important, but if we develop industry, the economy, we need more professional, skilled workers. So it will be provided by the vocational or polytechnic. And then we still work very hard in order to improve this. And then you can see this, only about 12% out of the faculty members in Indonesia, we call it teachers and faculty members, only 12% having a PhD degree, even though in some good university the numbers up to 80%. But in some university even more than 5%. You can imagine about the quality. And this is the gross enrollment rate. It's still about 31%. It's a bit low, but considering number of population in Indonesia, then we have to work very hard in order to improve the gross enrollment rate. And the quality, we have 3 bands of quality based on accreditation in Indonesia: A, B, and C. The best would be A, second would be B, and the C is about okay. But the majority is positioned okay, 39%, and C is considered it's barely enough. So Indonesian universities are working very hard to improve the quality, which is measured by the accreditation. And then if you talk about research, mostly research being carried out by university. Even though in Indonesia we got some other institutions, non-ministry government institutions, but majority of research and publications are produced by member of university. And because I'm talking about the management and leadership of university, this gives one a glimpse about the complexity of being academic leader. What is academic leader? If you are head of department, if you are dean, if you are rector, then you are the academic leader. But in order to be, being a good academic leader, then one has to understand the complexity of the situation. For example, education is based on input, process, and output. If you are able to select the best of incoming student, then the process will be not very difficult. Then you will get the best. So, and then we are talking about teaching and learning process. We talk about outcome-based education. We talk about student-centered learning. But then again, sometimes I would ask whether we have a good understanding about what is called as student-centered learning, outcome-based education. Sometimes people just, okay, I'll do the student-centered learning, but actually not like that. Still teaching with the mode of what's called in the past rote learning. So this is the complexity. Being a leader, then have to understand the whole process. And then you have to have a good academic community. What is academic atmosphere in the campus? You can sense that if you enter a campus, you can sense that, oh, this is a good academic atmosphere. You check the library, there is some activity. You check the classroom, there is some activity. And every week they got some seminar like this, interaction between student and the faculty, faculty and the faculties, and some other. That's the academic atmosphere. If you peek into for example, the laboratory, you can see the research activity being carried out. That's the academic atmosphere. If you can have a good academic atmosphere, then you can have a good graduates. Not only this, then you can produce a good research too. In some campus, even in fact, there is no office hours. Everyone works, well, round the clock in terms of research, for example. And then, when you are a dean or rector, you would like to produce good graduates, then everyone, not only dean, rector, but every faculty member has to understand that there are some regulations, curriculum, standard national for education. For example, for Indonesia, we got higher education standard for higher education. We got standard, and we got this qualification framework, and it's compatible with international qualification framework. So one has to compare this to understand this, and it's become more complex for the leadership role, because not only as a faculty member, but also has to have a good understanding of district government, has to have the ability of public relations, strategic or operative management, finance and management, quality management, research knowledge management, and some other. So, and that you cannot expect this if you are only a faculty member. If you are only teaching, do a good research, you cannot become a good leader, because you have to understand what is the governance of the university, how to have a public relations. Sometimes and mostly, you have to be able to generate funding. Because the fund from the society is not enough. You have to be able to do fundraising. And then you have to understand what is the quality assurance. What is the quality? Quality is not the claim that we are good. Quality is in the eyes of the beholder. Your graduates, the society will tell you whether your university is good enough or not good enough. So, and it takes time, if we want to talk about the quality. And as being a leader, you have to understand the difference between leadership and management. It's two different things, Management is rather than, something like you follow all the rules, managerial things, And according with standard operation procedure, that's a manager. But being a leader, sometimes it's the most difficult things to do. Because you would like to lead the member of your institution to go somewhere. And it is not difficult. It is not easy, I mean. And then, this is how do you do the management? sometimes you have to be able to, to managing people in universities is different than managing people in a company, for example. Because in university you got professors with their knowledge, and then ability to manage this then will tell you whether you are a good leader or not. And then sometimes, as I mentioned before, if you don't have enough resources, you have to be able to do the fundraising. And then, of course, when you did everything in accordance with the surrounding environment, according with the rule, and then not only Indonesian rule but also international, need, then you'll be able to produce a good quality of graduates as well as you produce a good quality of research. Not only good for publication, but also eventually will be beneficial for the community, for the economy. And then the message that will be always disseminated by the ministry to the higher education leaders. University is a complex and unique organization. Complex and unique. Because, well, the outcomes of university is not easy to measure. It's not easy to measure. It's a complex and unique organization. Complex because you got creative people in here. If you don't able to inspire and control all of the members of your institution, then it will be difficult to have a good, I would say, a healthy environment. Why I said that unique organization with creative people? Because university is the place to create knowledge. But if you don't give enough space for creativity, then it will be very difficult to create knowledge. That's the beauty of university. And sometimes the knowledge being produced by university is not necessarily directly linked to the need of society. Because the beauty of university has to be able to see beyond the need of society. That's why we use Google, Google. That's basically the first fundamental aspect of mathematics, algorithm. I mean, people talking about math, and after 10, 20 years then, eventually it has something to do with what you use now. We use internet, Everything was based on the fundamental research. There is no such thing as applied research without any fundamentals. So, being a good leader, you have to be able to, to manage the creative people. Power in university are in two conditions, are in two aspects. First, power being given because you are a dean, says you have the power. Rector, you have the power. Head of department, you have the power because you got a degree from the rector, right? You have the power. But other power is sometimes very powerful. The professors, because they have the knowledge, they have the peers, academic peers, they have the networking. That's the power. The power being created in university. So, in order to manage this, it requires knowledge. You have to understand the nuance and value of university. Being a leader in this university and in other university might not be the same. Not to mention later on the situation of Central Java, and talking about what happened in Jakarta, it might not be the same because you have to understand the nuance and value being nurtured in a particular university. That's why it's very difficult to have a good leader in a university if he or she doesn't have any academic experience. Because what one experience, for example, in other university setting is different than university. Because in university, yeah, you got the boss, you got the rector, the dean. But if in reality, the relationship is most collegiality relationship. So that's the difference. Right? So in order to become an academic leader, you have to have the competency and skill. Competency and skill. Because if you're talking about curriculum, and if you don't have any experience develop a curriculum, then this will be difficult to convince your staff, you know. If you're talking about quality assurance, if you're talking about we have to have more number of publications, but if you don't publish, then this is difficult. You know. In university, you have to, you know, if you talk about publication, you have to act like one. You have to produce. That's the difference. You cannot only tell people, but you have to show people that I'm doing it also, right? So you still have the competency and skill, and most importantly, has the leadership. Has leadership. It's different than management. Okay, this is on the example of good government, good university government. What is good university government? This is example being practiced in 11 autonomous universities in English. Good university government basically is ensure that government at all levels, talk about board of trustees, you talk about senate, you talk about rector. Everyone has a good understanding about its function and role. For example, if talking about the academic, it will be the responsibility of the senate, talking about the academic. If you're talking about day-to-day activity, that would be the rector or president. And we talk about the general policy of university, that would be the board of trustees. So, if these three things work together, then we can see that, okay, this is a good university government. A not good university government would be like this. The board of trustees, instead of talking to the rector or president, the board of trustees would talk to even to head of department directly. Should go through the rector. And then if the board of trustees would, talking about the academic and try to overrule the senate position about the academic aspect, that's not a good university government. So if the senate produce, for example, a curriculum to be carried out by the rector, deans and all the faculty, then the decision being made by the senate has to be consulted with the rector, president and the board of trustees, because in any curriculum, for example, in order to improve the quality, needs some resources. So if we set up a very high standard, then there is no resources available, then you cannot implement a good curriculum. So, for example, this is called a shared governance. Shared governance is this. Something wrong with this? So, shared decision. For example, if you would like to increase the tuition, you have to talk with the student. Share the condition with the student, with the representative of student, as member of board of trustees. That's called a shared government. You cannot make any decision by yourself without, talking to others that will be affected by the decision. That's called a shared governance. But in the system, everyone has to understand who's the boss. If talking about general policy, this will be board of trustee. If talking about academic, the boss will be the senate. And if talking about day-to-day activity, running the 3 missions of the university, teaching, research, and community services, that will be the sole responsibility of the rector. And this is also to give you some idea why some university granted a full autonomy by the government. Out of 122 state-owned universities, only 11 being granted as autonomous university. But in order to be granted as autonomous university, you have to reach a certain level of quality. Also, a good management leadership, good performance quality, accreditation, not only national accreditation, but also international accreditation. International accreditation. And if you consider this as major accreditation, then it will be granted as autonomous university. What is major? For example, well, among others, you have a good linkage with industry and community engagement. And also being granted as autonomous university in Indonesia. Then the source of fund, the lion's share or source of fund, is not from the government, but your ability to generate funding from the society. So that's why this is not easy, but it's really opportunity, because you can practice what is called as entrepreneurial activities, become an entrepreneurial university. So we got the Act of 2012, that's you can be granted full autonomy. Not only in academic aspect, not only in non-academic aspect, but also in academic aspect. You can establish a new study program without having or ask permission from the ministry. We just tell the ministry that we just opened a new study program. So it's really a privilege, but it is not easy. And an issue and challenge in higher education leadership development, we notice that lack or few opportunity to develop leadership capacity in a campus. Sometimes if you like to have a dean, we don't have enough candidate. We don't have enough potential, prospective deans. Because mostly only a very good teacher, a very good professor, a very good researcher, but not enough, managerial skill or leadership. That's the problem. In order to hold good leadership skill, then if you are a leader, you have to be able to see, some potential leader from the very young among your staff. Give them opportunity to run a project, a task force, head of department, head of laboratory and some other, and then give them opportunity to attend some seminar, training, things like that. Then if you do that, then the university won't have any problem to appoint a new dean, for example, a qualified dean. So it should be, somehow develop the leadership capacity in one institution. And then the difference between public higher education and private university. In private university, the rector, for example, it's being appointed, not really elected, but appointed. So that's the different situation. But in university, normally, there is some, even though it's not election like election per se, but the faculty will be able to select some good candidate, and then there will be some kind of ballot, and then in order to, for example, to elect or select one dean, then from maybe 25 and then the rector will be able to choose one out of three selected candidate by the faculty. So that's the condition commonly happen in university. Why issue and challenges? Because being a leader have to be able or have a good understanding about the surrounding environment, economic globalization, relevancy between the need of economy and the need of society. Because sometimes university just admit students not because there are some need of certain graduates in order to meet the need of society, but with some other mission, with some other reason. And then eventually, university will produce graduate, but the graduate will be difficult to find a job. Not because he's not qualified, but because the availability of job is not relevant to the education being, carried out in the university. So that's the problem. So this will be the last, And then to give you some good understanding, this is the empirical data from all over the world. And the best academic leadership comes from people who understand universities and have been successful academia. If you would like to become a research university, then you have to have some understanding about research, and you yourself have been a good, successful researcher. Some countries or institutes offer seminar for incoming top academic leadership. In Germany, it's called International Dean's Course. So the process, a course that will be given to the prospective academic leadership in university. And among others then, talking about vice chancellor, rector, and president could, of course, benefit from some professional management training. And not talking about the technique of management, but in most cases, focusing in the nuances of the modern university. What is modern university? You get different kind of student these days. You have to have some, good cooperation with other universities. Talking about internationalization and some others. So this is very important. If you like to have your university move to the next level of excellence. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next item is token presentation.